Thank you for joining everyone. So far, 15 people are here. So I'll just start, okay? So, so let me just apologize you first only if my internet or anything goes down. So I'll try my best to stay connected because these days you guys know that there's an internet problem. So I apologize first only. So yeah, but hopefully it shouldn't go off. And thank you for coming. And many of you guys must have joined a previous webinar also. So this was the series which I was going to take up last month, and I had also taken up this session earlier. There's a part one and part two of this, but part two was conducted during that initial time of, when the Corona thing started. I think it was on 19 or 25th something of March. So not many people could join. So, but we thought of that we should restart this series so that more people could join, because now people are at home and they have time to just connect and join these webinars. And also that's why I've started this again. So many people have joined this earlier also. So this is just going to be a repeat session, but if you have any questions, go ahead, shoot your questions. And if for the new people, thank you for coming and joining this webinar. So I guess, should I start? Okay, I'll start, okay? So there are more than 20 people, so let's start. So this is going to be a basic fabric concept webinar. So firstly, before starting out, I first introduce myself. My name is Sanket Raiturkar, and I'm a blockchain engineer with Snapper Future Tech. And I've been working in blockchain for past 2.5 years to 3 years. And I have worked on Ethereum, Hyperledger, Fabric, Sawtooth, Indy, Besu, and I'm currently working in Corda. So yeah, and Fabric also, but majorly in Fabric, but little bit of Corda also. So I work for Snapper. So Snapper Future Tech has been featured in many of the magazines. We have been awarded by CIO Review, one of the most promising startups in blockchain, by Deep Tech, by Hong Kong International Blockchain and Financial Association also. Then we are a blockchain technology and innovation company since 2016. So it's been around 4 years we are in the blockchain technology. So among the most promising companies in blockchain technology for consecutive 2 years by CIO Review magazine. So we are a products and solution. We have our products and solution across healthcare, supply chain, banking and finance, and e-governance. And we offer multiple blockchain-based services using Hyperledger and Ethereum. So we have been, featured in these magazines also. So we have our POCs in e-governance, BFSI, healthcare, supply chain. Okay, so I have worked on property records, vehicle tracking, certificate authentication, crowdfunding, loyalty rewards, drug traceability, health records, then automotive supply chain. So many of the POCs and products I have worked on and I am working. So yeah, today's agenda is I'm going to just explain the Fabric, but before that I'm just going to go through Hyperledger Foundation and the various projects in Hyperledger. Starting out with Hyperledger Foundation. So most of you must be knowing this, that it is by Linux Foundation, and it was founded in 2016 to advance cross-industry blockchain technologies. And Hyperledger is an umbrella project under the Linux Foundation. It is an enterprise grade. So Hyperledger is basically created for enterprises. So previously Ethereum was majorly focusing on public blockchain. So, and it also had private blockchain, but it wasn't much focused on the private or enterprise grade for enterprises solutions. So Hyperledger came up with various projects and various frameworks just to cater enterprises. Okay, so it is an open source collaborative effort created to advance cross-industry blockchain technologies. The objective of the project is to advance cross-industry collaboration by developing blockchain and distributed ledgers with particular focus on improving the performance and reliability of blockchain. Okay. So Linux Foundation is a non-profit technology consortium founded in 2000. So in December 2015, it announced Hyperledger as a project. In 2016, the founding members of the project were announced. You will see who are the founding members of this Hyperledger. In 2016, early 2016, the project began accepting proposals for incubation phase. And on 12 July 2017, the project announced its production-ready Hyperledger Fabric 1.0 and started to gain popularity. Okay. So these are the various projects or frameworks and tools and libraries under Hyperledger umbrella. So this diagram is an old one. I haven't updated this. So there are more number of projects added now. So earlier it was Fabric, other frameworks and tools were Explorer, Quilt, Ursa, Cello, Caliper. So I have not mentioned Compose. I'm not mentioning Composer here because many of us must have started. I mean, earlier in 2 years, 1.5 years before, we had started learning Hyperledger through Composer. But now Composer is deprecated. It's not being used. I mean, it's totally, not there. I mean, you cannot use Composer now. So yeah. So yeah, Hyperledger growth story. It's been 3 years now. It's 4 years. 65,000 plus commit. 12 plus now. It's I guess 14 projects. 389 contributors. 12 million lines of code. 260 plus members. 50 plus in China. So yeah, 90 active community working and special interest group. 150 plus meetups worldwide. 50K meetup participants and 140K engagements. So these are the founding members of Hyperledger community. So IBM, Accenture, SAP, Fujitsu, Intel, they are major contributors of this Hyperledger, and other frameworks like Fabric is contributed by IBM. So IBM is fully, into Fabric. They are the ones who is developing and contributing to Fabric project. So yeah, so core principles of Hyperledger projects, that is what makes the Hyperledger better than Ethereum and Bitcoin. So if why they have come up with Hyperledger. So it's just for scalability and to better the interoperability part. So you see Bitcoin is having 7 transactions per second. Ethereum has around 24 transactions per second, right? So Hyperledger, you can do now, it is tested that you can do 20,000 transactions per second. So what does it, how it can do that many transactions per second? So that the reason is Hyperledger's architecture and the approach of, and they're different, the other approach than the what Ethereum and Bitcoin used to follow. So Hyperledger is modular. So Hyperledger is developing modular, extensible frameworks with common building blocks that can be reused. Highly secure. So security is key consideration for distributed ledgers, especially since many use cases involve high value transactions or sensitive data. It is cryptocurrency agnostic, so they do not bother about having cryptocurrency in their projects. So of course, Bitcoin had BTC, Ethereum had Ether, but Hyperledger, being just focused on enterprise grade solution, didn't want to involve cryptocurrency in their projects, and it did not wanted to involve mining. That is why it is not public. It is only permission. So Hyperledger is a permission network. Okay. I hope you guys know that blockchain has public, private, or permission and consortium types of network. and Hyperledger is permission one. It has complete with APIs. So all Hyperledger projects provide rich and easy to use APIs that support interoperability with other systems. Okay. And it is interoperable. So in future, many different blockchain networks will need to communicate and exchange data to form more complex and powerful networks. So for example, any company running a product in Ethereum, or they used to run it Ethereum before. I mean, in 2013, Ethereum came. So after in 2014, people might have developed applications on blockchain using Ethereum. So now they are running their project, but any company, or now they can migrate to Hyperledger. They can't migrate to Hyperledger because they are running their networks in Ethereum. But if they want to communicate with any other company having a network run in Hyperledger network, a Fabric network, so how they can communicate with these two networks? So this interoperability thing is going to come, and there is a project of Hyperledger that is called Hyperledger Quilt. So it is a interoperability framework which can be used to interoperate between the networks. And there is many work going on to achieve this interoperability. Yeah. So even in the Hyperledger umbrella itself, they have Hyperledger Besu, which is a Ethereum client. So you can use Ethereum client, but there is a Burrow. There's a project of Hyperledger Burrow, which is a EVM based project. So likewise, so they are creating alliances, Ethereum and Hyperledger together, and coming up with projects so that could work on both the networks and interoperate between each other. Okay. Could you tell about Hyperledger Besu? Please, I have already taken a webinar and it is on YouTube. I will give you the link and everything. Okay. At the end. So somebody asking about Besu. So yeah, I will tell you where to go to look for it. Okay. So going ahead, I cannot give permission to record. I guess it's not. I can give. So moving on. So Hyperledger Fabric was initially contributed by Digital Asset and IBI as a result of the first hackathon. So Fabric is a foundation for developing applications or solutions with a modular architecture. So as I mentioned, it has a modular architecture. So for example, you are having modular kitchen. So like your modular kitchen, you can fix a different parts in your kitchen, right? You did not have a single piece. You can plug and play kind of thing, right? You can fix that part separately, so it doesn't depend on each other. So that is modularity. So chain code or smart contract, chain code it is called in Fabric. So it's the smart contract. It is the business logic, the logic of your application that is inside the chain code. And if you are familiar with container technology, so if you are familiar with Docker, then it is really good. I mean, Docker containers are used to deploy chain code, or all your peers and chain codes and orders run in a container system that is Docker. Okay, so you can use Docker, or if you are familiar with Kubernetes, that is also good. Then you can use OpenShift. So these are the platforms where you can use container technology. Docker is container technology, but Kubernetes and all is a container orchestration. So that calls for a different webinar only. So let's not much talk about it. So Hyperledger Fabric provides Go, Node, Java as a smart contract typing language. So you can write your chain code using Golang, Node.js, or Java. So Fabric is an enterprise blockchain framework for developing blockchain with a modular architecture. It is private and permission, not permissionless. It's not public, where any participant can join the network. So participants has to be allowed. So you must know the participant. Rather in public blockchains, anyone could join anonymously. But in here, you have to. The person who is adding the participant in the network has to know that person and should not be anonymous. So it has to give permission to that person to enter into the network. So that's how the membership service provider works, like your telecom network. So for example, Geo, you need to give your ID to the Geo people so that they can give you a SIM card or your access to their network. So similarly, in Fabric, you have to give some ID, and they will give you some password or the structure. I mean, the algorithm they follow is public key infrastructure. So they give you some public key and private key so that you can access the network. Okay, so that is how it works. So ability to create a separate chain or ledger within a Fabric network using channels. So in Fabric, the ledger is called channel. So you can have multiple channels or one channel for your network. Okay. So the approach that Fabric follows is execute, order, and validate or commit, rather than validate, order, and execute that transaction flow, which brings the scalability and performance. Okay. So this is what I was saying, that the architecture of Fabric is such a way that it is scalable because roles and responsibility are given to the different nodes. In Ethereum or Bitcoin, every node has to do everything, like they have to validate, order, and execute transactions which come to them. So when a transaction is broadcasted, they go to the every node in that network, and every node has to validate it, order it, and execute it. But in not the case in Fabric. In Fabric, the transaction firstly goes to one peer, then the ordering goes to the other node, and finally, well, committing is done by some other peers. So likewise, the roles and responsibilities are distributed, and the processing is done parallelly and sequentially. So that is why it is faster than the other frameworks or other platforms. Okay. So how is Fabric different from Ethereum blockchain? So in Ethereum governance is by Ethereum developers, Fabric is by Linux Foundation. Permissioning, Ethereum is public and private, Fabric is only permissioned. Transactions are public and anonymous, where if I'm talking about public blockchain. And in Fabric, the transactions are private and confidential. Okay? It is within your organization or two organizations. So that is why it is private and confidential. Consensus proof of work is followed in public. Okay, it is reached by mining. So as I mentioned, Fabric doesn't is cryptocurrency agnostic. So it doesn't have mining. Okay. So it has a pluggable consensus, but no mining. So I had mentioned a couple of consensus mechanisms like Raft, Kafka, and Solo. These are the ordering services, not a consensus as such, but yeah, it is considered consensus. But consensus is collectively more broader in Fabric. So I'll go to that. Let's discuss about this later. Smart contract, yes. So in Ethereum, there is a smart contract written in Solidity, Serpent, Viper, Lisp-like language. So these are the four languages which can be used to write smart contract. In Fabric, there is Go, Java, JavaScript. Yeah. Native cryptocurrency is Ether. Fabric does not have any crypto. Scalable, yes, difficult to scale because of the architecture, and easy to scale, yes, that is because of the architecture. Transaction per second, as I mentioned, approximately 15 to 20 in public mainnet, and in Fabric, it says up to 10,000, but now it is not, it is up to 20,000. So why it is necessary to scale? Because we need to match up with Visa. Right, so if we in real time now, if we see Visa is having 70,000 transactions per second. So for blockchain to come to that level, we need to scale up. And of course, in Fabric they have tested 20,000. In Corda they are testing around approximately 50,000. So yes, the blockchain is coming up at par with the current infrastructure, that is of Visa or Mastercard or PayPal. So yeah, that is scalability. Fabric architecture provides a scalable blockchain via separating roles and responsibility of nodes. Confidentiality, privacy and confidentiality in transaction using channels inside DB. So yes, so channels provide you with confidentiality, but there is also a concept of side DB, which I will, it's not in this session, but in the next part, I will talk about this private data inside DB. Trust and flexibility. So smart contract runs outside the control of network node. So as I mentioned that it runs in the Docker container. So performance, transaction processing follows execution, ordering, validation, and committing, which brings the high transaction throughput performance via separating of roles and responsibilities. So network governance, there is no centralized governance, consortium-based shared governance model. Okay, so there is a consortium of organizations that governs this network. So there could be one organization, there could be two organizations, there could be multiple organizations sharing this governance model and sharing the network and governing this network. Okay. So let's talk about some fabric components. So a peer, so there are multiple components. So there are peer, there is an organization, there is ordering node, there is an MSP, there is a CA. So yes, we'll see what is a peer first. So peer is a participant in the fabric network which hold the ledger and the world state. They are different kind of peer like endorsing and committing peer. Okay. So there is a ledger, that means a channel or the blockchain case. So in blockchain there is a ledger, right? So there is a ledger and there is a world state. So for example, if you are familiar with LevelDB and CouchDB, those are the world state databases. Okay. So in that database is the current value of the transaction or the current state of the blockchain is stored in that. So we'll talk about that, this state database is in the next part in detail. Okay. So I'm just telling you that LevelDB and CouchDB are the state databases used in Fabric. And LevelDB is the default one. You can configure it for the CouchDB. So an organization can be as large as a MNC or small as an individual. The transaction endpoint of organization is peer. So for every organization, there is a peer. Okay. There could be multiple peers also. So ordering node. So it approves the inclusion of transaction blocks into the ledger and communicates with the committing and endorsing peer nodes. Does not hold a smart contract, does not hold the ledger. So what ordering node or an orderer does is that it includes transaction inside the block, creates the block, and then broadcasts the block to the committing peers to commit it into the ledger. So it does not need to have a smart contract with it, does not hold the ledger, it just holds the blocks and broadcasts it. Okay, so it handles the sequencing of the blocks. Then there is a membership service provider which provides credential to the clients and peers for them to participate in the Fabric network. So as I mentioned, there is a service which provides you with credentials, the certificates, the PKI structure, which I mentioned. So the part of MSP is Fabric CA. So in general, the certificate authority manages the enrollment certificates for a permission blockchain. Fabric CA is the default certificate authority for Hyperledger Fabric. So yes, it is not default as such, but you can use Fabric CA for a production ready application. But for development purposes, we use Cryptogen is a certificate generating tool to generate certificates for the participants in the network. So basically, certificates are just your public and private key to participate in the network and do transactions in the network. So if you are your fundamentals of blockchain is clear, so to do any transactions, you need to initiate your transaction with the help of your private key. So without your private key, you cannot initiate a transaction. So this applies here also. So yes. So smart contract, that is chain code in Fabric, is written in Go. So basically, most commonly used language to write chain code is Go. That depends. If anyone is familiar with Node.js, they can use that. Anyone familiar with JavaScript, Java, you can use that. Asset. So anything that can be owned or controlled to produce value is an asset. So asset can be tangible such as car or farm fresh pieces, or intangible such as mortgage or patent. So in smart contract, you have to define your asset. So for example, if you are creating a chain code for a supply chain use case, so your asset could be a vehicle from the manufacturer to the distributor to the showroom or the dealer. So this car is your asset. If you are manufacturing engines, the engine is your asset. So likewise, your assets can be tangible and intangible, like your property records or maybe your intellectual property. So that can be stored as an asset in blockchain. So tangible or intangible. So a transaction is an asset transfer onto or off the ledger. In a Hyperledger Fabric blockchain, assets are represented as a collection of key value pairs. Okay. The ledger is maintained by each peer and includes the history database and world state. So ledger is held by each peer, that is committing peer. Okay, so all the committing peers, so every peer in the network is a committing peer and has to hold the ledger except the orderer. Okay, and includes the history database. So all the data which is passed on to blockchain is held by these peers and world state also. So world state, a database that holds a cache of the current value of a set of ledger state. So as I mentioned, we'll talk about world state more in the next webinar. So channel allows organization to utilize the same network while maintaining separation between multiple blockchains. So only the members of the channel on which the transaction was performed can see the specifics of the transaction. Okay. Yeah. So we'll talk about channels more in the next one maybe. Okay. If you have any questions, I'll answer. So I will talk about channels more in the next one. There is something called as endorsement policy. So endorsement policy defines the peer nodes on a channel that must execute transaction attached to a specific chain code application and require combination of responses. So basically endorsement here is validating of the transaction. Endorsing peers has their certificates. You have to attach the certificate and sign the transaction and validate the transaction. So that is why that is what endorsing is. And endorsement policy is defined like for who is going to sign the transaction. So that who is going to sign the transaction is defined in the endorsement policy. So for example, a peer of organization one, peer one of organization one and peer two of organization two has to sign the transaction. So that is the endorsement policy. So for any questions you have, you can type your questions in the chat. I will read it after the session, or you can unmute yourself and ask. Is endorsement policy okay? There are questions. Okay. Okay. What is the minimum number of nodes? There is no minimum number of nodes. If you are able to invest in, able to have a number of machines for dedicatedly for this blockchain network, you can have multiple nodes in your network. That is, okay, minimum, I guess. Right now, currently tested that is working properly is 200 nodes in the network. That has been tested, 200 max. So is endorsement equivalent to consensus? So yes, yes and no, but consensus, as I mentioned, is not just endorsing or ordering. So it is collectively endorsing, ordering, and committing. So these three all consist of consensus. All these three processes is consensus: endorsing, ordering, and committing. This is consensus in Fabric. There is no limit to creating number of. Yes, there is no limit, but 200 has been tested, but as there is no such as a limit to the network. So Fabric supports 20 TPS with present which consensus, Raft consensus. So they have used Raft for that to 20,000 TPS. Any other question? So is your question answered, Manish, Apurva, Arun Kumar? Your questions answered? Any more questions? Okay, fine. So I'll go ahead. Okay, only with Raft. Yes, only with they had tested 20,000 with Raft, but previously they were using. So there is no point in, there is no, of course, they can't test it with Solo because Solo is just having one order. They have tested with Kafka. Of course, they had tested with, I guess the 10,000 one was tested with Kafka, but Kafka is, what happened was the configuration is very complex because there are Kafka brokers, then Kafka zookeepers. The architecture becomes very difficult to configure. With the Kafka. So yes, but you have to configure it in a, I mean, I can show you this, I mean, how to do it, but that is not to be, I don't want to discuss that now. Okay, Arun Kumar, I will, you connect with me on LinkedIn, I will tell you how you can do that. Okay, you should have a good connectivity also, bandwidth also matters. I will share a document of that. Okay, at the end of this session, I will you remind me, and I will share a document on that. Okay, how to achieve 20,000 TPS. Okay, so let me get. I mean, let's get over with this and let's have a Q and A after this. Okay. So we have number of nodes and they have their roles. So committing peer maintains the ledger and state, commits the transaction, may hold smart contract. Endorsing peer, specialized committing peer that receives transaction proposal for endorsement, responds granting or denying endorsement must hold smart contract. So the reason the endorsing peer must hold smart contract is whenever a transaction proposal comes, it first goes on to endorsing peer. It must check that the business logic that is written in the smart contract. So they have to check that logic, verify that logic, validate the transaction, and then send it back to the planned application. So this is how it works. Then ordering node approves the inclusion of transaction blocks into the ledger and communicate with the committing and endorsing peer nodes. Does not hold smart contract, does not hold ledger. So that is what I mentioned earlier, that it whenever it receives transaction from planned application, it puts that transaction inside the block and broadcast it to the all the peers. So committing peer and endorsing peer, the reason is every peer is a committing peer, even the endorsing peer is a committing peer, but not all the peers are the endorsing peer. So every peer is a committing peer, but not every committing peer is an endorsing peer. Okay. So endorsing peers are defined. There are some endorsing peer, but every peer is a committing peer because everyone needs to hold the ledger and not the orderer. Okay. Ordering node hota hai, that is just hold the block, handling of the blocks and broadcasting it, but बाकी peer होता है, committing peer होता है, endorsing peer होता है, which holds the ledger. So there is much some in detail explanation of MSP here. I'll just run through this. So MSP manages user IDs and authenticates clients who want to join the network. Okay, this includes providing credential for those clients to propose a transaction. Okay, so the MSP makes use of CA, which is pluggable interface that verifies and revokes user certificates upon confirmed identity. So if a CA issues certificates, it can revoke certificates also. Okay. The default interface used for MSP is Fabric CA. So Fabric CA, as I mentioned, it is used for production ready environment, but for development you can use CryptoGen. Okay. So Hyperledger Fabric CA is the default CA component, which is based on PKI certificate to network. So X509 certificates are issued to the users or participants of the network. It provides identity for peers and orderers, client application, and admin. So if you had attended my installation and the practical wala webinar, it is also on YouTube. I tell you where it is. So I have shown all these certificates where they are. So I had talked about this. So if you are guys get time, you can go to that. I'll mention it later. Okay, so identities can be issued by Fabric CA, which is provided by Fabric, or also you can use external CA, like as I mentioned, OpenSSL. So this is the third party Fabric CA is by Fabric. It provides authentication, validation, signing, and issuance. Supports different crypto materials with pluggable architecture. A network can include multiple MSPs, so you can have multiple MSPs in a network. Okay, includes TLS crypto materials for encrypted communication. Not necessary to understand. So actually, it is a transport layer that TLS needs to have, but it's okay. Let's talk about it. Let's not go into detail of that. The ordering service packages transaction into blocks to be delivered to peers. So different configuration options for ordering services include Solo. So as I mentioned, Solo, Kafka, Raft. So Solo node for single node for development, which is not feasible if you have one orderer, a solo orderer. If it goes down, your transactions won't get inside the block. So there is no point in having a single orderer. But you can use, if you are starting out, then you can use Solo. It is better to use Solo if you are starting out. In Kafka, it's a crash fault tolerant consensus. There is a Raft, which is also a crash fault tolerant. But the Raft is widely used now because Kafka is very difficult to configure. It is very complex, and yes, so that is the reason. And it sometimes works or not. When I used to work in Kafka, so it took a lot of time for me to understand how it works and to implement it. But ultimately, Raft had come, so I dropped the idea to use Kafka and started working in Raft. So yeah, then the Raft setup was easier for me. So yes, I use Raft now. So yes, we are done. If any questions, please you can ask on the chat, or you can unmute. Hands-on session today? No hands-on session. Not, at least not this month. You can see. I have a hands-on session recorded on our YouTube channel called Indian Blockchain Institute. I have typed it in the chat. So it is a YouTube channel. Please go there, and I have there are my webinars. Okay. Yes. I'll come to that. The TPS one. I'll show you how the document. So Daksh Verma, please connect with me on LinkedIn. You can see my LinkedIn ID here, or mail me, or connect with me on Rocket Chat. Okay. So whoever are new in blockchain, learn blockchain, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Okay. So that fast. I'll tell you the TPS one. I don't know if I have downloaded it. So yes, can you see this? Who asked me that question? Arun Kumar. Type Fast Fabric and this article. Download the PDF and please read it. So they have given the how to configure it. So it's not just Raft making it work as for 20,000 TPS, but there are channel configurations to be done. Okay. So got it? I want to develop Raft network. Any clear explanation like GitHub. So there is if you go onto my GitHub repository, there is a Raft network. You may understand it, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll tell you in that document. That is Kafka. Okay. Our LinkedIn ID was, visible. So it's simple as Sanket by Raiturkar. That's my LinkedIn. Okay, can you share link? I won't here, but LinkedIn pay I can share, or you can mail me. Mail me here. I will share you the link for clear raft implementation. It is, I mean, easier now, but if you are using Fabric 1.4.4, it is very easy to configure raft. So what I used to do is we used to use balance transfer as the sample. So if you are familiar with Fabric sample, we used to use balance transfer, and I was configuring the first network raft into the balance transfer. So it was the first there, but now in 1.4.4, if you are new to it, you can use directly first network and see the raft setup. It is very easy. But if you find any difficulty in that, of course you can connect. I mean, we can talk. Thought to get the data into Hyperledger Fabric. So now I haven't worked in this Arun Kumar. So if someone's data is in Sawtooth, you want to get it in Fabric. And okay. So you mail me. If I close this, then your email is lost. You can note down my email, right? Get to see the point. No, I have no idea. Okay, that is a simple solution. You have to again input your data into Fabric, but Hindi, yes, there is a course on Hindi on EDX. You can go check out, Abhishek. But I know it's available or not. Please check. There is no good course on Hindi, but there are just, very vague courses. Yes, interoperability. That's true. That's why I haven't worked on it. So that is why I can give you a technical solution on that. And that interoperability tool that is built, it is still under incubation. It's not working yet, and nobody has worked on it practically. So that is why I haven't done that. Okay. Then execute order validate flow again. After endorsing peer signs it goes to order. Okay. So I'll explain the transaction flow again. Okay. So a client application request proposal is done. Request goes to the endorsing peer. Endorsing peer signs and validates the transaction. That transaction goes back to the client application. Client application sends back to that means the execute part is done. Okay. So client application say endorsing peer signs, validates it, sends back to the client application. Your transaction execute part is done. Then client's application sends back the client transaction to the orderer. Orderer puts the transaction inside the block, creates that block. Okay, that means ordering is done. Ordering के बाद it goes on to it broadcasts it to the committing peers. Committing peers validates it again and then commits the transaction block inside those peers, committing peers. Fine, Rajashree. Any other questions? So we have time, 5-10 minutes we have. So I'll just tell you about our courses. You can go on to indianblockchaininstitute.com and please on the Indian Blockchain Institute website, there part 2 is on 6th. Okay, on 6th I have Fabric, the other part of this. Then we have multiple webinars about blockchain in cybersecurity, then Libra, Then on 16th or 13th, I am doing a webinar on Corda. So yes, it will be an introduction on Corda. And yes, in the coming weeks, we have at least till 21st, we have our webinars lined up. Any questions? Any more questions?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to peer set up two virtual machine.
Sorry?
So how to fix the data? I have the two peers networks, two organizations.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, tell me. Just be loud, okay? I can't hear
Yeah,
you.
I have.
I did not get your question actually. So please.
Actually, I have.
You have
Actually, I have the
two organizations. Each organization has one peer.
having the one pair,
Yeah. After that.
and I want have the two CLIs, two couch DBs, and one
Okay. Two
channel.
CLIs and couch DPs. Okay.
Yeah, two CLIs and two CAs and two couch DBs.
Okay.
Every pair having the CLI and couch DB.
Okay.
So how to sort of that problem, how to fix that data, and
Okay.
how
You want to configure CLI for that organization, couch DB for that peer, and CA for that peer. CA for that organization.
yes, that's one completed. But how to connecting the data fetching means like uploading things, files, and everything. Using two VMs communicating with two VMs. How?
Okay. You want to multi-host.
Yes, multi-host.
Okay. Okay. So to multi-host, you need to use it is Docker. Can you use Docker Swarm? Is it easy to handle multi-hosting using Docker Swarm?
Docker Swarm. Okay.
Docker Swarm.
I'm using presently Docker Compose and Docker.
Okay, yeah, but if you use Docker Swarm, even in Docker Compose, you have to specify the IP addresses. Okay, but
yes, extra IP addresses. I have initiated that one also.
Okay,
but
using
one pair is running fine and one pair is up. All the pairs ups, but data fetching is not possible. But copying the certificates is possible. But production level that is not correct. Yes, that's why I'm asking you. Any idea about that one? Can you share that Kafka network, please?
Sorry?
Kafka network. Kafka.
RAF network.
Yeah, so sorry, RAF network.
Yeah.
Using first network is not. I'm confusing little bit.
This is you, right?
Yes, Bhimeshwara Vankareddy.
Okay, I will mail it to you.
Okay.
And there are more questions. I need to log in for a person money. Hurry, connect with me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn पे I will guide you on this. One network, two are and two are in consortium. But I need to create access to one. So,
the present situation of the jobs is. Can you share some idea about the jobs? What was the going on blockchain?
Job.
Yes, jobs.
What jobs in blockchain?
Yes.
So right now, so there is nothing, and I guess for next 3-4 months also there will be nothing in India at least. But yes, many work is going on. I mean, jobs is it is easier to get into a startup, but you need to have, I guess, how many years of experience do you have in blockchain?
1.5 year experience.
1.5 year. Okay, and I don't know actually. I can't comment on this because I don't have a real idea about it. Okay.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Is there a way sorry, I just joined. Is there a way I could get a recorded
Sure. Please go on to. I have mentioned in the chat.
Okay.
There is a YouTube channel of, Indian Blockchain Institute.
I see. Okay.
Indian Blockchain Institute. So go on to this YouTube channel, and there is a webinar of this section which I taken last month. So it's the same thing. So you'll find it.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Organization, to create an organization, you are asking. You need to give channel create access to one organization in the name. Creation of organization name. So I guess there is a way, the access control list would be, used to, to give this answer to your question, maybe. Sorry, Arun Kumar, I sent it to you privately.
Hello.
Yeah.
I think okay. Without Docker is possible. Without Docker.
Without Docker Swarm.
Yeah, without Docker.
Yeah, you can run. Natively you can run, but I haven't tried it.
Hi, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt very quickly. You have to run a multi-node, multi-host server. You actually need some sort of Docker orchestration tool. So Docker Swarm is actually one of them. But if you are looking for a production version, then you can use Kubernetes. And
Kubernetes.
Yes.
Okay.
And there are a few, I'm not sure how many people have experimented with this. There are a few tutorials online. Personally, I have not tried it. I've just run with Swarm. But you can go through with it, and if you are well versed with Kubernetes, then I think you can have a shot at it yourself and go ahead.
But ma'am, I have a question for you. If I'm not using Kubernetes, then what is the harm? If I'm using just Docker Swarm, then why do I have to use Kubernetes?
Docker Swarm, like you said, it's actually a lot simpler to run. You just create a swarm and you just connect the networks. It's a lot simpler for a development environment, but it's not that simple for production because the benefits that Kubernetes provides over Docker Swarm are just better when you're using it for production level, because Kubernetes has automatic load balancing systems. It has automatic, it takes care of the shutdowns as well. So you don't have to worry about your endorser node shutting down anytime.
Okay.
I agree, but there is a scaling up and there is better load balancing in Kubernetes.
Right.
But in my opinion, you can also use Docker Swarm in production. That is, not use Kubernetes every time, but yes, of course, Kubernetes is a better option for container orchestration.
Right.
But I feel that Docker Swarm can also be used for production. Maybe
it can, of course, but then it just gives that added automation service. That's it.
Of course, yeah. So, but yes, that's true. Any other question? Kubernetes is not, there is domain issue. No, I don't think so. Kubernetes is fine.
Okay.
So there is one person which I'm also doing his Kubernetes tutorial, like Anurag Agarwal. So if you go on Meetup, he takes online sessions on Kubernetes. So it might be helpful whoever wants to work in Kubernetes. Of course, you can go on and read the official documentations, and there are multiple tutorials on Kubernetes. But if you want it live and instructor led, that Anurag Agarwal one is a good option. Any other questions you can take up? So I guess it's time, and we'll stop. So if you want to join, you can join on 6th of April. It's going to be a part 2 on this. If you have any more questions, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can connect with me on Rocket Chat. You can mail me. Yes. Okay. So thank you so much for joining, guys. Stay home, stay safe, and I'll see you on 6th. Bye.
This is being something which is very astonishing to me, that as per several studies and reports, only 5 to 10% of the people are actually employable. By that, what I mean is that only 5 to 10% of the working class or the working people have the right skill set to be employed. And this is one of the major hindrances leading to unemployability. And the only way to overcome is upskill yourself. With rising competition, upskilling has become one of the key priorities. And understanding this fact, IBI has come up with an exclusive program for the students, which we call it Blockchain Plus Internship Program. So this Blockchain Plus Internship Program will help you to learn in depth about blockchain technology, working on several projects, creating decentralized applications, along with an internship in Snapper Future Tech. So in this entire program, you're going to learn the entire product lifecycle development, what goes into enterprise grade applications and solutions and production. And this program is basically for students. This is about 2 to 3 months program, and it is a live instructor-led program. So any person from around the world can participate in this program, can sign up, and will also get an internship appointment letter with Snapper Future Tech. So you're going to work with the industry-leading faculties. You're going to get a lot of mentorship during the program, and also get a lot of hands-on experience to learn about creating your own product. So even if you're looking forward to be an entrepreneur, this is the right program for you, because you know what goes into the product development, what is the thought process, what kind of a business model you should think about, and most importantly, how is the product lifecycle development. You need to always hear your customers out. So this program is exclusively aimed at students, primarily freshers, who are looking forward to land their dream job and build their career in the technology space. So blockchain is one of the most paid skills in demand. It's the number one skill in demand. It's the best time to learn blockchain. And this is only one of a kind industry program which will help you not only learn, but also get internship. So at the end of the program, you're going to be evaluated by your faculties and get an internship letter from Snapper Future Tech, which is one of the leading enterprise blockchain companies. So this program will cover Ethereum, Hyperledger, and also internships. So you're going to learn a lot about Ethereum, which is a public blockchain, Solidity, how to create decentralized application, create your own tokens, write your own smart contracts, along with Hyperledger ecosystem and how to create create a network. You are going to learn about Golang, Kubernetes, Dockers, and so on and so forth. So this is really exciting program. This program is exclusively for you. So please sign up, as we have limited seats available for this. Thank you so much and have a good day.